Eskom's announcement that it is considering permanently implementing Stage 2 load shedding as well as Stage 3 power cuts for 24 months has been met with criticism. By the way, Eskom has done an about turn on that, saying that it was a consideration, but it's not something that they're actually going to do. And a decision, according to Sukunati Manchanja and some of the media reports today, has been taken against any announcement of a permanent load shedding roster at Stages 2 and 3. Board Chairperson Mpho Makwena says the utility aims to deliver some degree of predictability for the country as it goes through the turnaround plan. Former Cosatu unionist Dr Ebrahim Harvey is with us now to talk about the situation. A very good evening to you, Doctor. So, someone who's now courted controversy over remarks made about the energy crisis is President Ramaphosa. He told the ANC members in the Free State yesterday that he's now, in fact, spoken to the board at Eskom and said to them, please don't implement the 18.65% tariff increase. One analyst speaking to us earlier said that may even be political overreach at a state utility. What's your take?
Yeah, well, you know, I don't know about political overreach. What is clearly happening is, you must remember, there's a particular set of circumstances. You've got next year the 2024 elections. Ramaphosa is very cognizant of this, and also bear in mind that this NATSA increase of almost 90% comes in the midst of the very worst and devastating load shedding crisis. So Ramaphosa, you must remember, however, this is quite very interesting because a couple of days ago he said his hands were tied when the NERSA increase was announced. And you know, in my News 24 column, I criticized him very strongly, and then now, well, you can see Ramaphosa's come under immense pressure. Cosatu and the SACP has slammed this NERSA increase. And he has to take into account, you know, the allies of the ANC for the elections of next year. So I'm not surprised. And in fact, I think, you know, was it not that we have a number of issues, but particularly the 2024 elections coming. Ramaphosa is very mindful of this. And I think whether it came from his advisors or his own thoughts about the matter, but quite clearly he has turned around, and we have to see what's going to happen. But there's no doubt, you know, that he is facing a lot of pressure, I think, even within the ANC allies, Cosatu and the SACP.
Do you think then, Dr. Harvey, that this renewed rush or appearance to be more committed to finding solutions to the energy crisis is fueled largely by politically expedient reasons?
Yes, but it's not just a question of political expediency. I mean, look what terrible suffering people have gone through with this load shedding crisis, you know, and we thought with the new year starting, hopefully there'll be an improvement. It continued with this new year and so it's against that backdrop, you know, and the devastating consequences which load shedding has had for business or people, etc. Just remember, I think Ramaphosa is becoming cognizant of that. You know, these renewable alternatives that you can do when you've got load shedding, it's largely middle class, and often the middle class can't even afford battery inverters, panels, you know, and these things. So I think it's begin to get home, you know, and quite clearly, I think Ramaphosa has realized that he needed to quickly turn around, because just a few days ago he said that his hands were tied. Certainly, I think pressure from Cosatu and the SACP and next year's election would have been major factors, you know, that caused him to intervene. A bit late, however, but, you know, a very important move, I think, against the backdrop of the determination of NERSA and Eskom, you know, to have asked for a 32% increase in the first instance, you know, against this devastating backdrop of the load shedding crisis is really startling.
Right. So does the president then not run the risk of all of this backfiring? I mean, you've just yourself said that next year we've got a general election. All polls at this stage are predicting a further decline in ANC electoral support. Some saying it may even dip for the first time since those first election in 1994 below the 50% mark. So to make a promise in 2023 to do something about this crisis so close to an election, is that not too big of a gamble to take if indeed by the time we go to the ballot next year, there hasn't been much delivered on these promises or commitments?
No, but it's necessary. I support, you know, In fact, civil society broadly has welcomed, including the opposition parties and the DA, including the EFF, this turnaround, and he's informing Eskom that they've got a freeze or hold back. Whether it's going to be frozen temporarily and still come back, to be honest with you, my own feeling is that that this increase coming in the midst of the worst cost of living crisis, that should be shelved completely. It should be, just done away with, eliminated completely. This is what is going to be the big, don't forget also the legal challenge that's looming. Civil society has never rallied behind a major issue like it has now with the NERSA announcement of this major increase. So I think Ramaphosa is also mindful of the fact that it's possible, if not probable, that this legal challenge to NERSA's increase would likely be successful, and in anticipation of that, he changed his mind and now says that he's urged, NERSA and Eskom to hold back on the implementation of the increase. But don't underestimate that I think huge support has come from the allies of the ANC, opposition to this NERSA increase. A major factor you must consider, because the allies of the ANC has increasingly, stated that they are not being taken seriously, And so perhaps Ramaphosa is now giving some indication that he's listening, closely to what the allies of the ANC are saying.
So let's say Eskom then yields to this request and does not implement on the 1st of April the tariff increase. It needs the money desperately. Even the 18.65% is not going to be enough to achieve what it says it needs to do, paying off debt, making sure it's got enough to buy diesel and everything else that it needs. That puts the ball back in Treasury's court. Treasury itself is saying it's working with a strained purse. Are we not ultimately, as consumers, going to have to fund it some way, somehow, perhaps even through increased taxes?
Yes, no, a very important question, because the reality is this: if Eskom doesn't implement that increase, no doubt, they're sitting already with 400 billion rand in arrears, in debt. That money will have to come from somewhere. And Ramaphosa and the Treasury will have to sit down and find that money, because absolutely, in fact, if that money is not found, Eskom is going to plunge into a deeper crisis and you're going to have even worse load shedding. So there's no doubt that if this increase is not implemented, Treasury and Ramaphosa will have to sit down. They're going to have to find ways and means of securing that funds. Otherwise, we are going to be, we mustn't be, we've got to be mindful of that if those funds are not found, then load shedding is going to worsen, in fact, So that is the big task now that faces Ramaphosa, if indeed this thing is scrapped completely, and Eskom, where they're going to find that funding, and Treasury would be the first stop, and Ramaphosa and his advisors and Treasury has to sit down. There's no alternative, Why I favor that this increase be scrapped completely? Really, we are sitting with people where the next plate of food is coming from. It's the worst: poverty, unemployment, malnutrition. Children are starving. People are going to bed hungry. This is the context within which this NERSA's almost 9% increase has taken place, and hence how it has rallied wide support among civil society, and especially for this legal challenge. So it's a very difficult situation for Ramaphosa and the ANC and indeed Eskom. But I don't see any alternative. They've got to scrap this thing completely. But the challenge is going to be, no doubt, to find those funds, That is the big
They would be met, though, with resistance, would they not, if they looked at increasing taxes on people as a means to collect more money?
Well, this has been there. There are some elements in the business community who is prepared, more progressive, and knows how dire the situation is, prepared to listen and think about, wealth tax. And, that has to perhaps be now, more than ever before, looked at more seriously. And hopefully, more and more voices in business, in the business community, especially the upper echelons, what is called the commanding heights of the economy, has to come to the party, really. That might be something that is going to be pushed now by especially the ANC's allies, Well, they've spoken about this wealth tax for a long time, but maybe it's time now that some serious consideration is given to some kind of wealth tax to deal with this matter. Otherwise, we're going to be in for already now, there's indications that you're going to have a low-level load shedding 2, 3, 4 for the next 2 years. And it is if they don't secure that funding, then we're going to likely have a higher level of load shedding than anticipated, over the past few days. And this is the stark reality and choices we have. And I hope that Ramaphosa and the ANC and those who have supported and urged him to issue the statement, that they need to freeze or hold back on this NERSA increase, are thinking simultaneously of where they will secure that funding if indeed the increase that is jettisoned and it does not occur.
Dr. Ebrahim Harvey, thank you for your time as always.